Unified School District Board of Education. We will start with a pledge to the flag led by our student member, Regina Safey.
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we'll have a moment of silence. Thank you. Before we get into the regular agenda, we will start with some presentations.
Mr. Rockwell, I'd like to invite the whole board down with me so we can recognize a couple of outgoing board members. Good evening, community. I see some special guests here and family and friends. It's really nice to see everyone. Just about a week or so ago, we attended the annual California School Boards Association Annual Education Conference, and we were reminded at that time that there are about 5,000 elected school board members across the great state of California. And we were also reminded in some passionate discussion that we felt strongly that recognizing that there are more elected school board members than any other elected office in the state, we felt like not only were we great in numbers, when I say we, I'm looking at current and future board members, but our board members have made probably some of the biggest difference for our students and for our future. And so we believe individually and collectively that elected school board members make a real difference. A difference in our community, a difference in our state, and a difference in our nation. Thank you. And so at this time, I would like to recognize a couple of outstanding board members who have committed their time very loyally and faithfully to Sierra Sands Unified School District. I'd like to call up both at the same time, Mr. Tim Johnson and Dr. Chad Hauk. We have these nice hourglasses that, of course, symbolically represent some, I would say, significant time that was invested the last couple of years. Sometimes people don't necessarily know that the monthly public school board meeting, which is a very important meeting like this one, is not the only board meeting. In some cases, there are dozens of extra meetings in a year, and I think in one year we had somewhere close to like 40 school board meetings in the height of the pandemic. This hourglass is presented to Mr. Tim Johnson, being on the Sierra Sands Unified School District Board of Trustees from 2008 to 2012 and 2014 to 2022. I'll hand it over. And Dr. Chad Hauk, Sierra Sands Unified School District Board of Trustees 2020 to 2022. And if you'll bear with me 1 second. I also felt like it would be neat to hand Dr. Hauk and Mr. Johnson their name tags with a little message that I inscribed on the back with a heartfelt thanks for everything they've done for us. And so on behalf of the whole district, we appreciate your service, and I know our board, there's a lot of camaraderie, and they've appreciated the service too. So thank you very much.
Can I say one thing?
Absolutely.
Okay. Since you said I'm outgoing, I figured I'd be outgoing. So I just want to personally thank everybody for the opportunity to serve for the last 14 years. It's been an honor and privilege to serve with this group before, and I look forward to watching the new team form and make your own new board and all the great adventures and great stuff you're having for our community as we move forward. Thank you.
Okay, so as we transition, we also have, we'll be installing 3 board members. We have 2 new board members joining our team and 1 incumbent returning. So we have Mr. Kurt Rockwell, Mr. Robert Campbell, and Mrs. Mary Campbell, not related. No. So if the 3 of you will join me, let me get. I don't know if I should attempt for the people at home too. Okay, so if you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear.
I, Kurt Rockwell, do solemnly swear
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
That I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California,
That I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations, you may now take your rightful seat on the dais. Congratulations.
All right, thank you. That will take us to item 1, adoption of the agenda. Any changes?
There are no changes, Mr. Rockwell.
Fantastic. That's wonderful when that happens. That'll take us to item 2, organization of the board. Dr.
That
Ostash.
would be me, thank you. At this time, I would like to ask for nominations for the office of President of the Board from now to the next organization meeting in December 2023.
Would like to nominate Mr. Ferris? I move we close nominations.
Okay, so at this time, I see a nomination on the floor for Mr. Ferris. All those in favor signify by. Roll call. Oh, is it roll call? Yep. Okay. I'm trying to remember, do I conduct the roll call or the current president? Okay, all right, just testing everyone. All right, Mr. Rockwell, how do you vote?
Mr. Ferris?
Mr. Ferris, how do you vote? Mr. Ferris. Mr. Scott, how do you vote?
Mr. Ferris.
Mrs. Campbell, how do you vote? And Mr. Campbell. Okay, by roll call vote, it is unanimous. Mr. Ferris, congratulations. You are now the president, chairman of the board. Welcome. So then I keep, okay, so now that, well,
You can do either way.
Okay.
You can do it both ways. If you want to complete the election, you can. If you want to turn it over to me, I can.
you know what, how about I turn it over to you, Mr. Ferris?
Do we have to change chairs for this
No,
time?
I'm good. That brings us to 2.2, election of vice president or clerk of the board. Do I have any
I'm-
nominations?
I nominate Michael Scott.
We have a nomination of Michael Scott. Any other nominations? Seeing no other nominations, nominations will close and we'll conduct a vote for Michael Scott as vice president clerk of the board. Mr. Rockwell?
Mr. Scott.
I vote Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott?
Myself.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes, Mrs. Campbell.
No, you-
Do you,
Mr. Scott.
and Mr. Campbell?
Mr. Scott.
That is unanimous. Brings us to item 3, election of the board representatives, the alternate representative of the committee that elects members of the county committee on school district organization. I'm sorry, a board representative and an alternate. So Any nominations?
I nominate Mr. Campbell to be the, I'm sorry, Mrs. Campbell to be the representative and Mr. Campbell to be the alternate.
Okay, we have nominations of Mr. Campbell for the representative and Mrs. Campbell for the alternate representative.
Other way around.
Oh, that's right.
I
apologize.
stuttered at the
Thank you.
beginning, I
You
apologize,
did,
and
you
I
did.
tried to screw you up.
And I appreciate you taking the credit for that, but I did it all on my own. Thank you very much. So it's Mrs. Campbell for the representative and... Yes, it is. Maybe I'm not speaking into it, but it's on. So that's Mrs. Campbell for the representative and Mr. Campbell for the alternate representative. Any other nominations? Hearing no further nominations, we will take the vote. Mr. Campbell, your vote?
I vote for Mrs. Campbell to be the chair, and to the vice would be Mr. Campbell.
All right, Mrs. Campbell? Okay. And pointed out to me by our audience that we need to make sure we speak directly into the microphone, and you have to pretty much get right in front of it. And part of that is also so that when it's televised, they can hear. Mr. Scott?
I'm going to do it the easy way, Mary and then Robert.
Okay. Mr. Rockwell?
I'll do it the confusing way, Mrs. and Mr. Campbell.
You know, I'm not sure we
And
should sit next to
I
each
vote as I vote for the proposed nomination as well. So that is unanimous again. That moves us to item 4, election of board representative to meetings of the National Association of Federally Impacted Schools. That's NAFIS. Do I have nominations for that position?
I nominate Mr. Scott.
We have the nomination of Mr. Scott. Any other nominations? Nominations will close. We will call for the vote. Mr. Campbell, your vote?
I vote for Mr. Scott.
Okay, Mrs. Campbell, your vote?
Mr. Scott?
Mr. Scott, your vote?
And myself.
Mr. Rockwell?
Mr. Scott.
And myself, Mr. Scott. That makes it unanimous as well. Okay, we have now elected our officers and our annual positions. We'll move to item 3, which we will temporarily adjourn and conduct the meeting of the Inyo Kern Schools Financing Authority Board of Directors. And in that meeting, we have the adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes?
No changes?
If not, the minutes will stand as presented unless there is a correction. If not, we will acknowledge the new officers. The officers are the same officers that we just elected for the board. So we'll call out that acknowledgement, and then we will move to adjourn the meeting of the Inyo Kern Schools Financing Authority and move back to the regular meeting of the Sierra Sands Unified School District Board of Education. And we will go to item 4, approval of the minutes of the regular and special meetings of November 17th. Again, if there are no corrections, they will stand as presented. And we will move to item 5, programs and presentations. Dr. Ostash.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. We're really excited. I see many members of our Burroughs High School band. I see parents, community members, and of course we have Mrs. Peterson and Mr. Cosner here. Thomas Wanacott, one of our students, will help. I thought it would be really appropriate. Tonight, the board will see before them an action item to approve a $3.1 million arts and music grant. And there's actually a lot more money coming, and stay tuned in future board meetings. It's really nice after, I would say, decades post Prop 13, 1978, to really see a significant investment and revitalization of state music and art programs. And so we're very, very fortunate that at this time, Mrs. Peterson, Mr. Cosner, others on the team, the music teaching team, are really poised and ready to take our music programs to the next level and to really wow us, I would say. And so I had asked Mrs. Peterson, Mr. Cosner, if they would come and just share a little bit about a recent trip to Hawaii, where our band represented us very well in honoring our veterans from World War II and being in Pearl Harbor. So, Mrs. Peterson, could I ask you to come and share a little bit about that experience?
I am not Mrs. Peterson, but I'll kick it off.
President Ferris, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Ostash, and staff and community. I am Brian Cosner, longtime band kid and current director of bands at Burroughs High School and Monroe Middle School. So Mrs. Peterson and I recently took the high school music department, band, orchestra, and choir to Hawaii for the Pearl Harbor Memorial Celebration and 80th anniversary commemoration. Students got to perform in front of the USS Missouri. We got to see the physical wonder of the island of Hawaii. We got to hike Diamond Head and saw a lot of other natural landmarks. They got to go to the Polynesian Cultural Center. So just the experience of, getting out of Ridgecrest, going to LA, getting on a plane, flying somewhere. This was the first time so many of our students were able to do something like that. And to on top of that, be able to experience those cultural and historical events was really enriching for them, not even to mention the musical experiences that they got to have. In addition to the performance with the parade performance and the performance in front of the USS Missouri, they got to perform with hundreds of other high school students in a big arc with the Marine Corps band in the middle. During our downtime, all of our students all flocked to the Marine Corps band and monopolized pretty much all of their time before the performance. I think there were so many benefits to trips like to a trip like this, and I hope this money comes in. This money coming in just means we get to do more of it. It was a huge undertaking being able to do this. We would not have been able to do it without our sponsors. Our generous community sponsors included the Ridgecrest Musical Enrichment Society, Square Print, Desert Valleys Federal Credit Union, Alta One, House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, the Institute for Medical Leadership, WACOM, Altrusa, Police Employees Association of Ridgecrest, and the Lions Club of Ridgecrest, as well as all the community and the parent volunteers that helped us. We have some chaperones in the audience, if they wouldn't mind standing up. We wouldn't have been able to do it without them. And at the risk of summoning her by mentioning her name, Cherish Rent probably doesn't want me talking about her, but she was the trip coordinator, and there's no way this would have happened without the hours and hours of work that she put into helping us with this trip. So I'm gonna kick it off to the Burroughs High School Band drum major, Thomas Wanacott. He's gonna share a little bit about what it was like attending as a student.
First of all, big thank you to all our sponsors. Hawaii trip was very fun and got a lot of new experiences as a Ridgecrestian that I've never had before. The water there is not cold like at LA. It was my first time flying, like he said, with a lot of students, it was the first time flying. Probably my favorite part of it was the parade. We walked by the side of the beach, like the road that goes parallel to the beach. It was a really cool area. A lot of people gathered there to watch the parade. After having the Christmas parade here, I feel like we were more appreciated at Hawaii, so I think Ridgecrest needs to step up their game. And then the Polynesian Culture Center was, personally, I didn't find it too fun. I find it kind of boring, but most of the people there, it was educational, and there's a lot of neat things to see that you won't be able to see anywhere else, probably. That's about it. Bye.
We'd like to share with you now a video of a lot of different footage that was captured by Ms. Knipe and many of our other parent volunteers.
This weird toolbox replacing gadget is quickly becoming...
To give the full concept of what this Hawaii trip has really meant to our students and our music program, I think it's important for me to give a little bit of context. My first year of teaching music for our district was in 2020 during DL, and it was bleak trying to engage the students in meaningful connections and share music when they didn't get to have the experience of connecting with each other. When we finally were able to start returning to in-person cohorts in very small groups, it struck me how hard it was for the students to re-engage with each other, like they didn't even know how to reconnect after that amount of time away. And our music program through that, it felt like it was kind of brought to its knees. When at the start of the following school year, Mr. Cosner and I were looking for ways to breathe new life into the BHS music program, and I received an email invitation and a call, and I thought this might be just the thing to bring more excitement and revitalize our program again. The trip was more than what I would have asked for. The student, parent, community engagement, and enthusiasm and support from our leadership has been phenomenal and more than I expected. The trip itself provided experiences of visiting the USS Arizona Memorial and performing Homeward Bound in front of the USS Missouri, singing America the Beautiful in an honor choir of more than 150 members on Pearl Harbor Day, with the Pearl Harbor veteran in the audience. And these are experiences that will stay with me forever, and I think our students as well. Building on this amazing opportunity and invigoration it has given to our program, I can't help but look forward with gratefulness and anticipation at what's ahead. In 2020, we had 5 music classes at Burroughs and 1 teacher, me. This year, we have 8 music classes, and Mr. Cosner and I are specialists able to better serve our students. And most excitingly, next year, we have the reinstatement of elementary music education for SSUSD in 2023. This, coupled with a $3 million grant for arts and music education and Prop 28, lending real support and value to music in our schools, is a thrilling time to be building on a thriving music program. So thank you to the board, Dr. Ostash, Dr. Savko, Mr. Ald, and all the leadership and community for supporting music education. I'm really excited what's next. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think it's important that we are often reminded the breadth of public education and what can be offered to kids. I don't know about you, but as I watched the broad cross-section of what those kids got from that opportunity, as well as what they get from their instruction every day in music and the arts, as well as the other programs that we have in our schools. It's a phenomenal opportunity in public education, and it's a phenomenal responsibility, and we appreciate everyone's part in that. And thank you so much. I know it was no easy task to accomplish that trip, and appreciate the dedication that was shown to make it happen. Thank you so much for the presentation this evening. Okay, that brings us to public hearings. There are no public hearings this evening, so it brings to item 7, reports and communications. And item 1 under reports and communications will be our student members report. Regina?
Murray Middle School. This semester is culminating with midterms, projects, and of course the variety show. Students get to show off their talents to the school, and everyone can attend as long as they continue to exemplify the Mustang way. After the food drives last month, Ms. Zurin started our club, Friends of Rachel, FOR. This group continues the important tasks that started with our Rachel's Challenge Assembly and finds opportunities to generate and recognize kindness. Just over 100 students were recognized by their peers as purposely positive and got to watch the movie Wonder for the afternoon. They were treated with hot cocoa and popcorn. In the middle of the holiday season, students showed their spirit over the last several weeks by wearing pajamas, ugly sweaters, and tomorrow is holiday day. PTSO volunteers also got into the giving spirit by graciously providing a soup and chili-style lunch last week to the entire staff. They just finished a fundraiser selling beef jerky, which also helped them to provide the music program money to buy new cases. Basketball practices are in full swing, and the 8th grade groups participated in their first tournament over the weekend. The first home games start after we return from the new year. Orchestra and band provided beautifully festive music for our winter concert Wednesday, and it was a full house. Go Mustangs. James Monroe Middle School. You can hear it on the radio. It's the most wonderful time of the year. We at James Monroe would agree. Finals finished up today, and everyone is looking forward to some much-needed time off. Of course, that includes the preparation for the second half of the school year. Last week was our winter masquerade, which was a blast. This week we enjoyed the winter concert put on by our music department, along with an art open house where students' art from the semester was shared with families. The art students also sold hand-painted ornaments as a fundraiser at the open house. Tomorrow is the JMMS Spelling Bee, a long-standing school tradition. When we return in January, we will have our ribbon-cutting event for our updated gym. This will include a game where our teams combine to play against the staff. Looking forward to a little friendly competition in our new gym to kick off the basketball season. Mesquite High School. We are busy this holiday season. We had a very successful Thanksgiving feast and staff and students. Students competed in a photo scavenger hunt, and our ASB successfully served over 20 pounds of turkey. We have celebrated 9 more graduates this month, bringing this year's total to 14. Sergeant Lewis and Sergeant Rubio from the local Army recruiter's office came and met with our students to discuss the ASVAB exam and explain to our students what they can learn about their strengths and abilities based on their ASVAB performance. This was preceded last month by a similar presentation for the Navy by P.E. Kira Martinez from the Lancaster Station. Mesquite administered the ASVAB on Wednesday, December 14th. We had our annual Christmas luncheon for students today. It included ham and sides and a game of Christmas trivia and cookie decorating. Our ASB has decorated the media center with lots of Christmas cheer. The staff and students want to wish all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Sherman E. Burroughs High School. Burroughs has had an eventful couple of weeks after Thanksgiving break. Everyone is preparing for finals, which started yesterday and will continue through tomorrow. Keeping with the holiday spirit, the Jinglegram Sales fundraiser was from November 29th through December 6th. Students were able to send a note with a candy to their friends. Friends of Rachel had their coat drive, and Key Club had their food drive at the end of November. Teachers inspired their classes to raise goods through competition and prizes. We also had a holiday tree decorating contest between the various clubs and organizations. Voting took place in the library on the 12th and 13th. Swinter Day was on December 2nd, where students could wear a combo of winter and summer clothes, and Ugly Sweater Day was on the 9th. The day before finals was Pajama Day to give students a cozy feel settling into the test-taking atmosphere. The drama company performed It's a Wonderful Life, a live radio show played by Joe Landry on December 2nd and 3rd. Band performed their winter concert on November 30th, and the orchestra and choir had their winter concert on December 1st. The entire music department, including Color Guard, departed to Hawaii on December 4th, where they performed at the Pearl Harbor Parade. Sports have transitioned into the winter season. Wrestling, basketball, and soccer have all had preseason matches and their first league matches as well. Everyone is excited for the Christmas break, and we hope everyone has a happy holidays and comes back ready to go for the second semester.
Thank you so much. And being final season, if you need to excuse yourself, you're welcome to do so, but we'd love to have you stay if you'd like to stay for the rest of the show. That brings us to item 2, reports from members of the board. Mr. Rockwell, anything to report?
Yeah, I got just a couple things. First, I'd like to thank the community for re-electing me to my now 5th term. It was pretty clear that the community spoke loudly that they were looking for some change this year, and I certainly feel honored that they chose to keep me hanging around for a little bit longer. So I will do all I can to earn that trust and that support. The other thing, I've been a little struggling with how to do this, but because I want to make sure I don't say anything that would be construed as negative to Dr. Houck. Dr. Houck has been a valued board member. I've truly appreciated his thoughts, his experience that he's brought to those conversations. I think he was a very good board member for the 2 years that he served. But I wanted to share a little bit from my perspective about Mr. Johnson. I thought about, God, how do I want to do this? You know, I thought maybe I'd just pull him aside and tell him what I was thinking. Then I thought, we had a dinner at the California School Board Association meeting, and I thought, well, maybe I'll go over to his table and I'll tell him in front of his table mates. But I thought, you know, I really felt strongly that I wanted to say this more publicly and out in front of the community. And I just want to say, you know, I have to admit, I haven't always agreed with some of Tim's approaches to things, and you know, we probably haven't agreed on everything that's come before us. But you know, I think we always had a respectful, you know, respect for each other as we've gone through this. But I just have to say, he was amazing over the last month or so throughout this transition. I was, you know, first, one of the things he did that I thought was great is that he had a responsibility as a delegate for, you know, CSBA, and he lived up to that. He went to the CSBA delegate assembly knowing he probably wasn't going to return to the board, but he did the work anyway, and that was impressive. But what was really impressive to me is really the heart that he did it with. You know, he was very helpful to the new board members at CSBA, very supportive. He went to all the sessions throughout the entire meeting, you know, engaged with the conversation about what we learned and what we saw as we were going through it throughout that meeting. And I just thought that showed a lot of class, a lot of heart, and I just wanted to thank you for that. So that's all I have.
Any other board members want to share?
You know, I'd like to say a couple
Mr.
things.
Camp, go ahead.
You know, when we went to the CSCA conference, the first evening, my wife and I sat with the Johnsons. And, man, I couldn't be more welcomed by two people that I know the Johnsons, but I haven't seen them in a long time. And they were so gracious to us, made us feel welcome. In fact, the whole weekend, it was just amazing on what a class act both of them were during that time. And I just wanted to thank them for all that they did for us during that week. It made my wife and I really feel very gracious for what they've done for us. And also Mr. Hauk, you know, Mr. Hauk didn't have to, when I called him and asked him if he would help me get involved in running for school board, and he was gracious to take me down to the Kern County office in Bakersfield and show me the way on how to sign up. And so, again, I thank my friend Mr. Hauk for everything he did for me. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to share? Mary, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree 100%. These men on the board all of them are pretty much class act, spending that almost a whole week. Big shoes to fill, and I'm willing to learn and make things happen. So thank you for being there for me, because this is, it's a biggie. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it, and I'm learning, but thank you.
Thank you.
So,
I think it's all been said.
yeah.
I want to make a couple of comments. First of all, tagging on to what's been said, I couldn't help but notice as this meeting started that our two new members and our two outgoing members were standing in front of the dais talking before the meeting, sharing thoughts and ideas. And our superintendent pointed out to me, and I said, boy, that speaks to the quality of this community. And our superintendent pointed out to me, he says, you know, that's what the United States is about, the peaceful transition of power. I think we are an exceptional community, and I think we we provide an example for the rest of our country. We have a representative democracy. And the way that system works is our electorate picks who serves. And then it is our obligation to form a team to make decisions on your behalf with the best interests of our children and us community in the forefront. And I think this is a perfect example of how that's supposed to work. And my hat's off to all of you. I know we have important work to do, and we will buckle down and we will do it, and we will form the team that's necessary to do that. It occurred to me when I was at conference, it's been a while since this board has had a transition. And I'm thinking to myself, we need to make sure we welcome new members to our team. And I said to myself, no, that's not right. We're not welcoming into our team. They're not joining us. We are becoming a new team. So the electorate spoke. They gave us the folks who we were working with, and this is no discredit to the fine gentleman who served. I served with these folks. They're excellent servants of the people, and they served us well. We worked together well. But now we will be a new team, and I look forward to us developing that new team so we can represent our community and our children well. I have to say, we all got back from the CSB conference. You've heard several people mention it. It's a very important time of year for us. It provides our professional development and training in how to do our jobs and do it well. It exposes us to what's going on in the rest of the state of California, what challenges they're meeting and how they can meet them best. It provides inspirational speakers to keep us on our vision on why we're here and why we do what we do. All those things were excellent, but it also provides the opportunity for that 5,000 people to get together and understand what it is that's important and what the importance of how we operate throughout the year to influence the decision makers for public education that are beyond this district. And I was reminded in many of those sessions some of the amazing things that have happened. The way the budget was laid out so that we will be given the dollars in this next budget that are to our discretion and are not just categorical funding, but so we can put them where we believe students are best served. That happened because the California School Boards Association and the members of boards across the state of California put pressure on those lawmakers to see that those funds were distributed in that way. The transportation bill, which funds 60% of transportation, which was an area has been underfunded for years, suddenly frees up more dollars that we can put in the classrooms and to what we offer our students because we're not just putting it in the gas tank. So those are, again, things that came about because local school board members lobbied and influenced the legislature and the governor to see that those dollars go to public education in the right places so that we can meet the needs of our kids. It's a very important time. It's a very important aspect of what we do. You know, as Dr. Ostash mentioned earlier, we do meet once a month to make decisions on specific issues. But there's a whole lot more to this job than that. And affecting how things happen at the state and federal level to allow us to do our job is an important part, and we're going to have some items on the agenda later tonight that we'll be discussing about that. But I think it's important that the public know that's part of what we do and an important part of what we do. So welcome. I look forward to working with you. And gentlemen, it has been an honor and a pleasure working with you, both your dedications. And Tim, I know we worked together for a long time. We both had the opportunity to be educated by the community on how to both win and lose elections. We both took a 2 years sabbatical. So we have a lot in common. It's been wonderful serving with you, and I look forward to how we might work together in the future again. And Dr. Hauk, same with you. It's only been 2 years, but it was, I think in that 2 years, I think we did about 10 years of service, if I would recall. So those are my comments, and what brings us now to the superintendent's report. Dr. Ostash.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris, and let's get to work. No, it's really great to hear those comments in front of family and friends and community and professional staff, and I really appreciate the comments that have been made. So I'll go through some of my report here, or all of my report. Our attendance report for month 3. Our enrollment is 5,049 students. Last year this time was 5,014, so we're up 35 students this time over last year. As has been mentioned, the California School Boards Association Annual Education Conference was great for all the reasons that have been described. I want to highlight that Robert and Mary and I actually attended. We went early. We attended a full day new board member training, and it was an excellent training. Actually, it was the whole conference was, I think it broke some records for attendance, but I think also that new board member training was packed. There were 2 huge rooms filled. Each room was larger than this one. There's a lot of newly elected board members across the state, so it was really neat to see that in action, and I appreciated the early commitment shown by Mr. and Mrs. Campbell to really make themselves available. And then, of course, the sessions, there were a whole range of topics from school finance to socio-emotional learning, academic and career pathways, and many, many more topics. And board members and myself, we kind of divided and conquered and really went to a lot of things, had great conversations. I want to highlight a really neat thing that happened at Burroughs High School. Our athletic director, Michelle Lazaro, and teacher Haley Bell and Counselor Dave Vignalt hadn't done it in several years, hosted an athletics meeting for student athletes and their parents. That was on December 8th at 6 p.m., and I attended it, where it was very well attended in the library to go over preparation, academic and athletic preparation for those students who really want to gun for a scholarship to go to college and university. Wealth of information, and so Mrs. Lazaro and her team did an incredible job, and the parents and students were really appreciative of all the effort that went into that, and I thought that was really neat. I want to highlight Sue LeBlanc, our Director of Nutritional Services. She and her department, we're going to apply for a second round for the Kitchen Infrastructure and Training funding grant, which we earned last year, and we anticipate earning again. Last year, we purchased a walk-in refrigerator. We funded the Chef Kent training. I remember being at Murray one afternoon when we had the nutritious meals. Everything was made from scratch, and the lines were longer than they ever have been for students and for staff to enjoy. The additional state funds that we applied for and got that have been made available through Assembly Bill 181 were intended to purchase equipment, make upgrades to kitchen infrastructure, offer food service staff training, and as a condition of accepting these funds, your school district must agree that 40% of your meals, at least 40% of your meals, will be prepared from scratch or minimally processed. So it's really neat to see us pursuing these ideas, finding those competitive grants, and then upping our game in the way that we nourish our students. So that's really exciting, and I appreciate Ms. LeBlanc and her team's efforts into this. I also want to highlight that our business office is going to be employing a service that I think most of the other districts in the county are already doing this, and we're jumping on board. It's called the Employee Self-Service Portal. It'll begin in February. We're deliberately starting in February so that we have 12 months of practice before employees need to get their W-2 for their taxes. And what this is, it's basically an online portal where instead of getting paper stubs every month and having them mailed from the county and then having all of our office managers driving in every month and then distributing them, all of our employees will have access to their personnel information, like their address, their contact information, their hire date, their employee ID, their pay history, their W-2s, et cetera, anytime they want, 24/7, just by using their unique login and password and getting that online. I know that, I think on the base, they've been doing that for many, many years. So it'll streamline the process. It'll represent a little bit of change. So some folks may not like it, but I think most will, and then everyone will like it once we get used to it. But we did very strategically decide to start that in February so that everyone will get their paper W-2 for their 2022 taxes, and then we'll have plenty of time to practice before the next go around for taxes. I wanted to mention that today, the 2022 California School Dashboard was officially released. District and site data are available for review, and the indicators on the dashboard include areas such as academic performance, English learner progress, chronic absenteeism, graduation rate, and suspension rate. So we will work through the analysis process, and then the board can look forward to getting some information shared here and publicly at the board meeting in the coming months. So I wanted to share that. And then lastly, I just wanted to highlight that we have lots of amazing programs in the district. One of them we highlighted was our music program and of course our arts program, but our robotics Burroughs program, our Burroughs robotics program, I should say, is really continuously elevating their performance and awards. We sent a public release to the papers that the high school robotics team 7422H continued the legacy of Burroughs High School excellence by winning the VEX Robotics League Championships last weekend in Bakersfield. Their performance qualifies them for the state qualifiers where they will have a shot at advancing to world championships. So I just really want to acknowledge Mr. Jacatin and his team and the parent volunteers and those at China Lake who help partner with us and advise us with some engineering and guidance. And there's just so much that goes into that. And you know, any student is eligible to participate, so anyone who wants to get on that and participate is welcome. So I just want to acknowledge that, and I'm really proud of the progress and the growth that we're making in the robotics area. So I really look forward to working with the board. I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year. And we will reconvene again in 2023. So back to you, Mr. Ferris.
Thank you. That brings us to the item 4, the report to the Board of Trustees of the Desert Area Teachers Association. Ms. Poole?
This seems taller than usual. I don't know who was last here speaking. Was it you, Dr. Ostash? Okay, might have been. Okay. Good evening, President Ferris, Dr. Ostash. I don't have to know all your new names, right? All y'all, community and staff. I'm Eileen Poole, Data President. I realized a while ago I've never said that. You might wonder, like, who is that woman always coming up here? It's just me. So I want to very first begin, this isn't very data-y, and just say that I'm so impressed. Amber and I, Ms. Peterson and I talk a lot. Our classrooms are apart from each other and we're collaborating in the spring play. Aloha. And I went to Hawaii this summer, to Oahu, with my, at the time, 9-month-old grandson and 4 adults. And we were wiped out, so I don't even know how you did it with all those kids, but I'm impressed. Okay, so I know we have new people here this year, and there was a time at some point last year when I had mentioned that recipe about the cake made with ketchup. Yeah, see, it's yummy. Well, the other day I was getting ready for work, I think it was closer to Thanksgiving, and I heard this story, and I swore that I will never do this to y'all, and if you ever see me with a cup of it in my hand, smack it out of my hand. But Hellman's mayonnaise is promoting a new recipe for eggnog that includes mayonnaise. Eggnog with mayonnaise. And I think that sounds disgusting, and I'm very respectful of other people's tastes, but people say it's good. I'm not going to try it. You'll try it? Okay. So if anyone tries it, let me know, but I don't plan on bringing any to you, unless, you know, someone sneaks some to me and it's good. So here we are, winter break. I'm not counting, but 12/20 tomorrow, I'm free. For 2 weeks, next year it'll be 3. Pretty excited about that. So I think things are going great. We don't need sleep. Everything is good. And kids are super well behaved this time of year. So, so that's nice. It is a lot of fun though. Okay, and so now I wanted to be a little more serious. And first of all, Dr. Ostash and I feel like we've been talking all the time just because those meetings have been so close together. And certainly there are things that we don't agree on and things that we do, but I just want to say one more time that we talked quite a bit about the process, and you mentioned that tonight, and that you believe in it and I believe in it, and to me that's kind of what holds us all together. So, and I just wanted to reiterate, we have some new people up here, and I think it's great that we all just really believe that somehow, you know, this always works. We believe in it. We're not always, each of us, happy about everything, but it works, and I feel really proud of that, to be part of that. Okay, and then when we spoke recently, Dr. Ostash, I had not brought my notes, and you very kindly asked if I had covered everything, and I forgot. So normally we talk, and then I talk here, but I did want to bring up that one thing when we all get together, the data teachers, and you know, there are positives and negatives, and one thing that's kind of been rankling us since these COVID years, you know, there's been a lot put on all of us, right? All of us in education. There are shortages everywhere. We're working harder. We're all adjusting to what life is. And so one of the things that we're feeling kind of frustrated with is that we are professionals and we have a lot of schooling, right? Because we have our degree, and then we have to go beyond that. And then a lot of us take other classes to get our pay increases, and we have master's degrees. So we're very well educated people, and we don't always feel respected and valued. And I mean that from a collective standpoint. Individually, a lot of us are very pleased with our admin, and we have good relationships and even kind of personal relationships where, you know, our principals and vice principals are checking in on us, and that we appreciate. But kind of as a group, collectively, we don't feel that respect is there. And the one thing that I want to bring up is that as we get our duties increased, all of us, I just want to talk for a second about elementary teachers, because they're dealing with such young kids and everything that they've gone through with, you know, the lockdown and then coming back with the masks. And yet, you know, it's still test. There's still so much that they have to do. And then at the end of the day, they're rushing off to bus duty, right? And they're not the only ones. They have morning duty. Middle school, same thing. You can't be there in your classroom on certain days because you're in the cafeteria. And high school, we put in our day of work, and then we're spending 3 or 4 hours, you know, taking tickets for a sports game. And there's a lot that's asked of us, and we do it. It's in our contract. We have to do it. And, you know, to some degree, we like seeing the kids and we enjoy seeing our kids playing basketball. But it's just now at this point with so much stuff on us and so much stress, we're kind of wondering why we, with all our knowledge and our expertise, why we're doing so many tasks that don't really require this. And we're taking up slack because, as I said, we're short everywhere. And I know that all of us are, even at the district office. You never know who's going to answer the phone when you call these days. So I know that we're all doing extra, but I don't know of another profession that has to do this work that's not really related to your job, and it's extra time, and thank you for it. So that's kind of what I wanted to bring up, and I just wanted to, again, say that we're all looking forward to break, and I'm looking forward to getting to know all of y'all. Thank you.
Thank you. Brings us to item 5, report to the Board of Trustees of the California School Employees Association. Is there a representative here today? If not, we will move to communications from the public. The board will provide time during the discussion of each agenda item for members of the public to comment. At this time, members of the public may address the board on items that are not on the agenda. The comments should relate to items of public interest within the board's jurisdiction. The law prohibits the board from taking action on items that are not on the agenda, but if appropriate, your comments will be referred to staff for response. When addressing the board, please state your name and address at the podium and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. In accordance with the board bylaws, the board will limit the total time for public input to 30 minutes. Those wishing to address the board beyond that 30-minute time limit may do so at the end of the scheduled meeting agenda. So I will now open public comment. Do we have anybody who would like to address the board? Seeing none, we will close public comment, and we will move to Educational Administration, pardon? Educational Administration approval of MOU with the College Community Service. Mr. Delbeck.
Good evening, President Ferris, members of the board, new members of the board, hello. Dr. Ostash and members of our community. I'm here with approval for a MOU, Memorandum of Understanding with College and Community Services. The district would like to enter into an MOU with College and Community Services for providing behavioral health treatment services, including substance abuse disorder treatment, mental health treatment services to Medi-Cal eligible adolescents and their family. The MOU is strictly an agreement which allows the county and the staff of the county's contracted treatment agency to have access to students at Sierra Sands school sites subject to the terms and condition of the MOU. The MOU would enable the CCS, College and Community Services behavioral health staff, to run groups on our campuses for high-risk students. The district current consideration, the district is in need of additional behavioral health services and would like to start collaborating with CCS to use their programs on our campus. Financial implications are no cost to the districts associated with this MOU. Superintendent's recommendation is recommended that the board approve the MOU with College and Community Services.
Move that the recommended action.
Second.
Recommended action has been moved and seconded. Do we have any questions or comments from board members on this item?
I'd just like to make comments. Not very often that
Go ahead,
we see
Mr. Scott.
something with no costs associated to the district.
Yeah. It's a good deal, and it's taken a while to do it because one of the issues we have is space on campus. We'd love to have every single school have, but these are groups that need to be done in privacy. And, so space was an issue, so we're going to start off slowly and hopefully grow our, we have our own behavioral health team, and this will just add to the services we can, and students we can service.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from members of the community? If not, I will call to the vote. All in favor of the recommended action, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are no oppositions. It's unanimous. We'll move to item 8.2, approval of Child Development Contract Resolution 192223 for services for the 2023-24 school year.
Good evening, President Ferris, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Ostash, staff and community. Applications were made to the California Department of Education by Sierra Sands School District to establish a state preschool at Inyakern Elementary in 1998, Pierce Elementary in 2005, and Fowler Elementary in 2009. Sierra Sands has contracted with High Desert Leapin' Lizards Incorporated from 2005-2006 to operate the district's state preschool programs. High Desert Leapin' Lizards has been operating since 1982, is a Title 22 center-based daycare for school-age and preschool children, and is a California nonprofit corporation. The CDE requires the district to adopt a resolution that approves the contract for the state preschool programs at Fowler, Inyakern, Pierce, and names the official who is authorized to sign the contract on the district's behalf. In order to meet this program requirement, the 22-23 resolution is presented for adoption to sign the continued funding application for 2023-24. There are no financial implications. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt Resolution number 192223, authorizing the superintendent to sign the 2023-24 state preschool contract. Too many twos.
Move recommended action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, and I appreciate you making the same mistake so I don't feel so bad. I know that's why you did it. Any questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from members of the public? If not, we'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Decker. That moves us to item 3, approval of arts, music, and instructional materials discretionary grant expenditure plan. Ms. Savko.
Good evening, President Ferris, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Ostash, staff and community. On June 30, 2022, Governor Newsom approved Assembly Bill 181. The bill established the Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials, or AMIM, discretionary block grant. On September 27, 2022, Governor Newsom approved Assembly Bill 185, which revised the AMIM discretionary block grant. The grant allocates $3.5 billion to local education agencies for 5 purposes enumerated in Section 134A of Chapter 52 of the Statutes of 2022, summarized as 1, obtaining standards-aligned professional development and instructional materials for specified subject areas, 2, obtaining professional development and instructional materials for improving school climate, 3, developing diverse, culturally relevant, and multilingual school library book collections, 4, operational costs, including retirement and healthcare cost increases, and 5, COVID-19 related costs necessary to keep pupils and staff safe and schools open for in-person instruction. Sierra Sands Unified School District's AMIM discretionary block grant apportionment is $3,062,098. The district may use AMIM discretionary block grant funds for any eligible expenditures from the 22-23 fiscal year through the 2025-26 fiscal year. All expenditures and reimbursements must be linked to an allowable use. The district's expenditure plan identifies the purchase of art and music textbooks, music instructional materials, and professional development as budgeted expenditures aligned to allowable uses. The governing board shall discuss and approve a plan for the expenditure of AMIM discretionary block grant funds at a regularly scheduled public meeting. The district's AMIM discretionary block grant apportionment, again, is $3,062,098. The district may use AMIM discretionary block grant funds for any eligible expenditures from the 22-23 fiscal year through the 25-26 fiscal year. All expenditures, including reimbursements, again, must be linked to an allowable use. It's recommended that the board approve the Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials discretionary block grant expenditure plan in your board packet as presented.
Move recommended action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Go ahead.
Just curious, who was involved in deciding where this money would lay out?
Keep in mind that this is a plan that is amendable at any time. So when we were surprised and excited to receive this discretionary block grant, the first thing that we did was we discuss it in cabinet. And we look at what are the allowable uses. And as you may be aware, we've had so many interesting and unique kind of categorical funding rolling out for 2 years. We have this spreadsheet that the business office, specifically Ms. McGuire, thank you, has put together so we can plan, like what are our needs. We've brainstormed quite a bit, right? What are our needs and how do we find a way to meet those needs through multiple funding streams? And I would be remiss if I didn't connect this dialogue in cabinet with the plan through the LCAP. Do you recall? And I'll just repeat for the public's benefit that we had an unexpected, and we are thankful to have more of our transportation costs covered, right? The public may or may not know that our first action in our local accountability plan is to pay for transportation, because that was not regarded by the state as essential, right? So that's how we have funded the majority of our transportation costs. But with the state's reimbursement of 60% of our transportation costs, that made space in our LCAP to consult the public and board about what are our local priorities. And if you recall, over the years in our educational partnership forums, that music and restoring elementary music was a priority. So we began to have dialogue about restoring elementary music through the LCAP funding source. And then we started to think about, okay, well, the LCAP, our hope is to pay for 4 elementary teachers, and then we need the things that go along with an elementary music program. And then this came from the state. And so our dialogue really went from the LCAP, how will we pay for the personnel, and the the intention is to pay for the what of that program, and then also to purchase art textbooks, which are the most outdated, along with music. And then this expenditure plan was also kind of discussed. We had our first elementary music advisory team meeting yesterday afternoon to talk about what might we need to lift up an elementary music program. Although not every dollar in this plan is truly allocated to the elementary, the majority of it, in full transparency, is, because it's a way for us to meet the public's priority and the board's priority for restoring arts and music in our district.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Very, very nice explanation.
Any other comments or remarks, questions on this plan? If I could, I noticed on the breakdown on the presentation, it talked about music instructional materials. Could you give a kind of a breakdown of what that might include?
Thank you for the question. So our intention was to have a comprehensive advisory team, because in full transparency, I did not major in art, although I'm a quick study in all instructional materials, as the board may know. This is not my jam, pun intended. So in our advisory team meeting yesterday, we invited community members, retired music teachers, elementary representatives, administrators, and what we're going to do in terms of, okay, what kind of instructional materials might we need? We're going to conduct an inventory of what we have, because the instruments and things have been dispersed everywhere. So we're going to do an inventory at all of our elementary sites of our materials, like books and materials. And then the Sierra Vista Education Center, I'll send out a community invitation for everyone to come to that special place to help me go through that building and see what we have. And then also I've heard that some of our materials made their way to Murray, Monroe, and Burroughs. So we're first going to conduct an inventory of what we have and the condition. We're going to look at what our experts in our district may recommend in terms of what will we need to accompany the new textbook when it's recommended. And so in this budget, I allocated about $500,000 to, and just as a broad estimate of the materials we may need. And when I say materials, I don't mean textbooks. And then another $500,000 is allotted in the first 2 years to purchase those music textbooks. So Mr. Ferris, I know you have music expertise. I don't, so my best shot is an inventory.
I do not have music expertise.
I can assure you.
I have music bluff. But I appreciate that, because and what I really appreciate the most of what you just told is a description of the process, because I think that's what's so important. If we're going to get to the right answer, we have to have the right process, the right inputs, So in the end, we get a well-developed plan. I'm very excited about what direction we're going and what kinds of things we're doing to broaden what we provide for students. I think this has been a long time coming. And because of that, I think we're all concerned that we do it right. And to do it right means we have a process that, as Mr. Rockwell inferred, it is inclusive, and that we really get a good assessment, and we think this through for the long haul. And I really appreciate that kind of dedication to this, and it is indeed an exciting time. We often deal with so many things that are just in the negative, and so when we can do something like this that we can build for such a long-term benefit to our kids and our community, it's very exciting and very rewarding. So thank you for what you're doing and protecting the process in that regard. Any other comments or questions on this item?
You know, I was just thinking at the high school level, the expense of instruments for the kids that are in the marching band and so forth, and are they going to cover that part of the bill too?
That's a great question. So Mrs. Peterson alluded to this, so did Dr. Ostash in his superintendent's report. We have such a fascinating time in California right now. One, I'm going to go back to the LCAP and having space in our LCAP to lift up more music. That's been a priority for 15 to 20 years, ever since we had budget crises in California. And then we had an unexpected one-time grant, the AMM, that we just talked about. But Prop 28 is really exciting because that's ongoing funding for arts and music. From what I understand, $800,000 per year. So our hope and plan, we haven't had too much time to discuss it yet as a cabinet and as a district and as a board. But that would be our plan, is to look at, with a process, what do we want to do to expand, to restore, and the high school and, of course, middle schools would be absolutely included in that. I can't speak to, are we purchasing trombones that first year? I don't know.
Or tubas.
Or tubas. But we will determine our local process and how we allocate that funding, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Any other questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from members of the public? And we will call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you so very much, staff. That brings us to policy development. Item 9.1, approval of revisions to the administrative regulation 511.1, district residency. Dr. Safko.
So often at our board meetings, we will present revisions to administrative regulation and board policy. And different departments hold the work of policy review and then revisions. And so our coordinator of student support services couldn't be here this evening. And so I'll be representing that department. So in that work, Administrative Regulation 5111.1 was identified as needing revisions. And as you know, the California School Boards Association has a policy service, and they often publish, well, they have a quarterly newsletter where they send out, these are the changes that have been made due to laws, et cetera. And so that's what this is about today. So Admin Regulation 5111.1, District Residency, has been revised to reflect the following. These are the highlights. Alignment with updated laws and regulations, alignment with local district practices to help ensure accurate residency, clarification of criteria for residency, clarification regarding proof of residency, inclusion of the Safe at Home Confidential Address Program pursuant to Government Code 625 through 6210. There are no financial implications at this time. It's the superintendent's recommendation to approve the revisions to Admin Regulation 5111.1, District Residency, as presented.
Move the recommended action.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. Any questions by board members on this item? Any questions or comments from members of the public? If not, we'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Brings us to 9.2, presentation of board policy 5111.1, district residency.
This is unusual. It's very unusual to have an admin regulation, but not an accompanying board policy. Typically, we found we might have a board policy, but not an admin regulation. I like to describe it this way. Board policy is the what we must do, and then the admin regulation is how we must do that. And so it's very unusual. We discovered that in our journey of review and said, well, we need to have the what established for this policy. And so although, as I stated, admin regulation 5111.1 district residency was adopted previously by the board, the accompanying board policy was not yet adopted. Board policy 5111.1 district residency reflects the following information: procedures to facilitate the receipt and verification of a student's proof of residency, investigation of residency, appeal of enrollment denial, enrollment not requiring district residency. There are no financial implications, and when we have a new board policy, what we do is we have a first reading, and that's what this is, and then the board policy will be presented again in January for approval consideration.
Okay, since this is the first reading, do we have any questions or comments or input on this policy? Hearing none, it will come back to us on the January 19th meeting for approval, as this is just the first reading, as Dr. Savko mentioned. And Dr. Savko, I really appreciate the embellishing you've been doing to help us make sure we're on target, and especially for some of the new board members, to things that have become routine to us. It's not bad to remind us, and it certainly, I believe, helps them as well to understand a little more clearly what we're doing. So thank you for that. Appreciate that. Brings us to personnel administration.
Move 10-1, 10-2.
10-1 and 10-2 have been moved and seconded. Since it's personnel, it cannot be discussed. So all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? It is unanimous. It brings us to 10.3, presentation of initial sunshine contract proposal for the 23-24 year from the Board of Education to the Desert Area Teachers Association.
President Ferris, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Ostash, community. The Board of Education would like to submit their sunshine proposal to the Desert Area Teachers Association for the 2023-24 school year. It is the Board of Education's responsibility to submit its initial sunshine contract proposal at a board meeting subsequent to the last meeting when Data proposed their sunshine. So I'd like to ask Ms. Poole to come up, and I will present her with the district's sunshine. The financial implications are unknown. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the board present the initial sunshine contract proposal, check, done, to the Desert Area Teachers Association.
Yeah, apparently we don't have a choice.
No choice.
We all need a little sunshine. So thank you very much for that presentation, and we will proceed with the process as we do respect it. Thank you, Ms. Poole. And thank you, Mr. Alt. That brings us to general administration. Item 11.1, approval of one or more board members to attend the CSBA and AXA Coast to Coast Federal Advocacy event in Washington, D.C.
Is that me?
Dr.
Would I, Mr. Ferris, is that
Yes.
me?
That
Okay.
is you,
Okay,
unless
that's
you want me
great.
to do it.
I'll do it for you if you don't mind.
please.
I
No,
think
that's
this is a great opportunity for the board to consider. There's some background on this that I know there is, I believe, a national school boards association that there have been some concerns that the California School Boards Association doesn't feel like the National Association has been properly representing the interests of California at the federal level. And so CSBA is a strong organization. We have Mr. Ferris is a director for CSBA. Our former member, Mr. Johnson, was a CSBA delegate. And so there's an event that sort of lifted up last year. This is the second time that the Coast to Coast event, which is kind of a co-sponsored event by CSBA and the Association of California School Administrators, known as ACSA. So in the spring of 2022, CSBA and ACSA began this. As I mentioned, the 2023 event will take place this April 24th through 26th. During the Coast to Coast Advocacy event, attendees will bring attention to the issues affecting the state's 6 million K through 12 students. During the event, attendees will shine a light on the issues affecting the state's 6 million K-12 students. And we have a lot of experience as a board and as an administration in finding the time and the energy to advocate, because we know that we have the Impact Aid program. And so that's something I think we'll talk about soon on the agenda about NAFIS. Did we do that already? We did. Yeah, we did that. Sorry, we did that. Mr. Scott is going to be our NAFIS representative. But this is a more, I would say, a broader opportunity for our board to get engaged in lobbying for federal consideration in issues that are really specific to California. So I would like to invite our board now to consider sending one or more members. You can see there are numbers, they're just estimates, projected estimates of what it would cost. And you can see that it looks like an estimated total per attendee cost would be approximately $3,000. There is space in the adopted board budget to do this, and so I invite the board at this time to have that conversation.
Okay, before I invite other comment, I would like to just mention, I specifically asked for this to be put on the agenda, and the board concurred that it would be of value. And I would like to make a little recommendation as we open this conversation. I do believe, as I stated earlier in tonight's meeting, that it's a very important work that we do to advocate for our district and for the concerns of California and specifically Sierra Sands, both at the state and national level. I think there has been a time in our history of structure in California that we have not been heard very well at other levels, but I'm encouraged by the last couple of years by the wins I can see that we have been able to accomplish, and so I think this is really important. I would recommend that maybe rather than getting bogged down on exactly who goes or how many we send, I would like to recommend that we maybe authorize up to 2. And then we could make the reservation spot for that, and then we can have a future discussion about, based on folks' availability and their calendars, who might be able or interested in going.
Yeah, I'm not available, but I truly believe that we should send 2. I would like, my personal belief, I agree. I mean, we've touched on this throughout the evening on how important it is for us to be at the state and federal level. I really think that one of our new board members should go with one of the seasoned board members to see what happens and to help guide them through that process, because it is pretty overwhelming. But like I said, I would like to see 2 people go.
So I think it sounds like if we, and I'm not adverse to if we're prepared to determine who those 2 are tonight to do that, but I think we at least need to lock in that we are willing to commit to up to 2, and I'm even fine with if we feel strongly enough that it needs to be 2 to identify that we want to do 2, and we can either determine tonight who those 2 are, or if we feel like it's more advantageous to give a little time for the new board members to get their legs under them. What are the thoughts of members?
I'm available. I looked at this and saw that, and if you want one new board member, and I'll go.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm certainly happy to support the effort. I've enjoyed both of my advocacy efforts both at the state and federal level, and the way CSBA is filling the gap. When we walked away from the National School Board Association, I'm very motivated by what CSBA is up to these days. So certainly happy to be one of the grizzly old guys.
Okay.
Going, if that's, even though Mr. Campbell is grizzlier and older than me.
Am I older than you?
So I'm hearing we have two folks interested. And Mike, you said you would not be able to go. And Mary, do you have interest in this, or?
If you need be, but I'm good with what you guys come up with, because there is a cost.
Do we have a motion from the floor?
I move that Mr. Campbell and Mr. Rockwell go to coast.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on this? Okay, then I will call for the vote on the motion. The motion is to send Mr. Campbell and Mr. Rockwell to the coast-to-coast in the CSBA coast-to-coast federal advocacy effort in April. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen, for being willing. That brings us to item 11.2, nomination for the representative to the California School Boards Association Delegate Assembly.
I'll take that. The CSBA Delegate Assembly is the primary policy-making body of the California School Boards Association. We've been talking quite a bit about that this evening. It sets the general policy direction for the association that represents California's school districts and county offices of education. Delegates fulfill a critical governance role by communicating the interest of local boards to CSBA's Board of Directors, like Mr. Ferris, Executive Committee, and staff. Delegates give policy and legislative direction through the adoption of the policy platform every 2 years and the adoption of other policy statements of the association. They also speak on issues and provide direct advocacy on behalf of the association. Delegates play an important communication and support role within their regions, and they also elect the association's officers and board of directors. Nominations for representatives to the Delegate Assembly are being accepted until January 7, 2023, so that's coming up. There are 5 delegates whose terms expire in 2023 in subregion 12B, of which Sierra Sands is a part. And each board may nominate as many individuals as it chooses within its geographical region or subregion. The 5 positions which are up for election are currently held by Pam Bauer of Bakersfield City School District, Tim Johnson of Sierra Sands Unified School District, David Manriquez of Kern High School District, Jerry Rivera of Arvin Union School District, and Keith Woolridge of Panama Buena Vista Union School District. Delegates serve 2-year terms beginning April 1, 2023 through March 31, 2025. So the board at this time may, if it wishes, nominate 1 or more individuals to serve on the CSBA Delegate Assembly. Permission must be received from an individual to place his or her name in that nomination.
So I will just add a little more information that wasn't available when this originally was written. 3 of the 5 delegates whose terms are up did not win their local elections. So those 3 seats will be available to new applicants. The other thing is that the new provisions under the CSBA rules and bylaws are that a district may only nominate 1 of its members to the delegate assembly. They can make more than 1 nomination, but not from the district. So as we discussed in the last meeting when we tabled this, first question I think on the table is there a board member willing and interested in serving for this?
I certainly would be interested.
Okay. Anybody else interested in serving this role? Do we have a
I'd like to nominate Mr. Rockwell for the CSBA Delegate Assembly.
Okay, I have a nomination. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to nominate Mr. Rockwell. Any other further discussion or questions on this? Any questions or comments from?
I just
member
want to
of the public?
comment, Mr. Ferris,
Sure.
if you don't mind. I did highlight this, I think, at the last board meeting or maybe 2 board meetings ago, but I just want to highlight to the staff and the community that we're very fortunate to have board members here who are highly engaged and really take the commitment level even beyond the local level. And we're very fortunate in Ridgecrest and the Indian Wells Valley, all of the communities, of course, who are served by Sierra Sands, to have the commitment by, you know, Mr. Johnson with delegate, Mr. Ferris. Hopefully, Mr. Rock will win election in that process. But we're very, very fortunate, and thank you to the board.
Okay, any questions or comments from members of the public? If not, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. I would like to further comment, it is important, so we are making this nomination. The election will be made by all of the 46 school districts in Kern County. So it's important that you get your name and information out to those districts about what you offer, because being on this side of the hill, it is a little harder to, if you don't have associations with folks in Bakersfield in that area, it is an uphill battle. So you want to make sure that we get that out there so we can solicit votes. It's not just the nomination process. There is an election that happens.
Understood. Yep. And maybe we can talk about that process after the meeting.
Sure. Yeah, and it will happen quickly. Excuse me. Okay, that brings us to Construction Administration. 12.1, approval of an agreement with Amtech Inspection Services, LLC, for inspection services associated with Richmond Elementary School replacement project. Mr. Coy.
President Ferris, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Ostash, staff, and community. In November 2022, the district was awarded a grant from the Department of Defense Office of Local Community Cooperation for the construction of a replacement Richmond Elementary School. The project is subject to the Division of State Architecture, DSA, and it is necessary to have a DSA inspector of record assigned to the project. The district issued a request for qualifications proposal for DSA inspection services for the Richmond Elementary School replacement project. Amtech Inspection Services, LLC was selected as the firm providing the qualifications that best meet the needs of the district. The cost for these services will be $100 per hour for a maximum of $13,500 per month. This will be funded by the OLDCC grant funds 80% and Fund 40 Capital Facilities Fund 20%. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve an agreement with Amtech Inspection Services, LLC, for the services associated with the Richmond Elementary School replacement project as presented.
Move recommended action.
Second.
Recommended action has been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from members of the community? If not, we'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Brings us to 12.2, approval of change order with West Coast Air Incorporated for roofing replacement and mechanical work at Las Flores Elementary School. Mr. Coit.
In January of 2012, the district initiated a project with the Division of State Architecture, DSA, for structural repairs related to the HVAC systems at the Las Flores Elementary School. The project was closed without certification in February 2013. On January 20th, 22, the board authorized the district to contract with West Coast Air Inc. for HVAC upgrades at 4 elementary schools, to include the Las Flores Elementary School. In June of 2022, West Coast Air Inc. initiated the project with DSA to begin HVAC upgrades at Las Flores. At that time, the district, through West Coast Air Inc., was made aware of previous uncertified project. It was determined that there were deficiencies in the MPR building roof system that must be corrected to close out the original project and allow West Coast Air Inc. to begin the new project. The MPR roof will need to be replaced and new mechanical units installed to correct these deficiencies. the district requested a proposal from West Coast Air Inc. for the work as a change order under the current contract. Under Public Contract Code Section 21-152, the board may authorize the contractor to proceed with the change order without competitive bidding, provided that the extra cost to the district does not exceed 10% of the amount of the original contract. The amount for the amount proposed by West Coast Air Inc. meets this criterion. The proposal received from West Coast Air Inc. for the change order is $496,475. Funding for this project will come from the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act, Elementary Secondary Schools Relief Fund, ESSER 3 funding. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve a change order with West Coast Air Inc. for the roofing replacement and mechanical work at the Los Flores Elementary School as presented.
Move recommended action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members?
Yeah, just one. You mentioned that as long as the cost didn't exceed 10% of the amount of the original contract, what was the amount of the original contract?
It was $5 million.
So is the price of this modification based on the fact that it's 10% of $5 million, or that it actually is? You know, I think the good work adds up to $497,000.
I think I'm putting quite a bit of pressure on them to hold to that amount, because if anyone's familiar with the Los Flores MPR, we still have evaporative cooling on that building, and we've had issues for years. In fact, that scope had come and gone in various DSA projects, and this is actually less money to make this than when we had it out there before. And so as I presented this and negotiated with them, I feel like we've got the best value we could get. We couldn't open that project back up again and get the HVAC and the roofing both completed for the price we're doing. And you'll see as the next board item that we're kind of purchasing some of the materials ourselves in order to stay within that change order allowance.
Okay, thank you.
So the short answer was no. Any other questions?
That answered mine, thanks.
Mike, did you have some?
No, he
Oh,
answered.
okay.
He answered
Any
mine with.
questions or comments from members of the public? Not, we'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Brings us to 12.3, adoption of resolution number 2223 to approve an agreement with the Garland Company Incorporated for the purchase of roofing materials for the Los Flores HVAC replacement project pursuant to California Multiple Award Schedule contract.
So with your permission, I'd like to skip down to the last sentence of the background information, because the rest of it's the same.
Oh, I don't know,
as
is
the
everybody okay
previous.
with that, or they want to hear the whole thing again?
You want to hear it again? Okay.
We'll let you skip.
All right. So the last sentence says, "It is cost-effective for the district to purchase the roofing materials directly through a CMAS contract. Pursuant to Public Contract Code Sections 10290 and 10298, the governing board of a school district may, without competitive bidding, contract with suppliers that have been awarded contracts, master agreements, multiple award schedules, cooperative agreements, and other types of agreements with state agencies that leverage the state's buying power for acquisitions authorized under specific sections of the California Public Contract Code. District staff received a proposal for materials needed for the project from the Garland Roofing Company. The proposal incorporates the terms and conditions established by the California Department of General Services Procurement Division through the California Multiple Award Schedule contract 4/2056/0006B, the CMAS contract. Approval of the resolution will enable the district to procure the materials necessary to complete the project pursuant to the terms of the CMAS contract as permitted by California Public Contract Code. The quote received from the Garland Company for materials was $98,486.20. Funding for this project will come from the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Securities Act, Elementary and Secondary Schools Relief Fund, ESSER 3 funding. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the board adopt Resolution 22-2223 titled Approve an Agreement with the Garland Company, Inc. for the purchase of roofing materials for the Los Flores HVAC replacement project pursuant to a California Multiple Award Schedule contract as presented.
Move the recommended action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Mr. Rockwell.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, and I know the answer, but I want to ask it anyway. The legality around the previous item where we're only spending 10% of the original contract, there's nothing in that that would come around and look at this as being an addition to that, you know, making it a $600,000 effort for a $5 million project, therefore taking it over the 10%?
I don't see it that way because we're correcting a deficiency that existed in the building from the last project, and actually another item that was on the district's radar to replace foam roofing with built-up roofing. So being that this is correcting a previous A number, I wouldn't think that we're causing any problems by procuring the materials ourselves. It's our standard way to do new roofing in the district, to procure materials under the CMAS and then just pay for labor.
Okay.
Think I'm going to split by.
Thank you. Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a legitimate question. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
because I know his wife and my wife would be saying the same thing. Yeah, I know that terminology from base. So.
Any other questions or comments? I just want to comment. I appreciate the complexity of and the intent of the regulations that guide us through these. And I also appreciate the personal attention that you give these items to see that in the end we come out within the law in an appropriate way to fund the projects in the least restrictive way, and that we end up with the best price we can get. And that's really what the purpose of all those laws and structures are. And I think the fact that you're using you're rolling in that some people don't do, the common sense and the comparative and the history, so that you know what we were looking at to pay for that before. And this is within that same concept, but yet more expeditiously. And I understand that the reason for these exceptions that allow us to go without competitive bid is it assumes that you're doing that kind of oversight that says, yeah, this is a reasonable price based on what others are already paying. And we're saving a whole lot of money of not going through that extensive process, as well as the time delay. So, and we all know in today's construction world, time delay is big dollars. So thank you for that. And I think it's important that we walk very carefully on those lines of the guidance that we get by the laws and the rules that we're governed by, but also with the common sense and the understanding of where we want to end up in the end about funding our projects. So thank you for that.
To add to that, I think it's those things, and I also think it's the creativity that comes with understanding all of that and coming up with solid solutions. And this is just one example. I mean, and this is, you know, I haven't said it before, but you know, you see that from, you know, Randy and his team again and again and again. So it's a great thing to see.
Yeah, it's not an effort to get around the rules. It's an effort to get to the best best price and the best product we can for our organization. And appreciate that. That doesn't come easy, I know. Any other questions or comments? We'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. That brings us to 12.4, approval of payment to Mealis Modular Buildings Incorporated for materials, the DOD OLDCC Richmond Elementary School Replacement Project.
In November 2022, the district was awarded a grant from the Department of Defense, Office of Local Community Cooperation, for the construction of a replacement Richmond Elementary School. On March 10th, 2022, the board approved an agreement with Milas Modular Buildings, Inc. for the permanent modular portion of the project. On March 14th, 2022, the district issued a Milas notice of intent and authorization to proceed with design. Under public contracting rules, the district is not able to award a contract to Milas until the design has been approved by the Division of State Architecture. Due to potential supply chain issues and cost escalation, Milas has requested that the steel and lumber for the project be purchased in advance of the actual contract award and that the district reimburse them for the purchase. The district has consulted with legal counsel and has determined that it is acceptable as long as it is specified that in the event the project is not completed, the cost of the materials will either be refunded to the district or the district will assume possession of the materials. The cost of the material is $461,898. This will be funded by the OLDCC grant funds 80% and Fund 40 Capital Fund 20%. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve a payment to Milas Modular Buildings, Inc. for materials for the DoD OLDC Richmond Elementary School replacement project as presented.
Move the recommended action.
Second. Recommended action's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members?
I think
Go ahead.
my only comment is, you know, we've seen a few of these items come up for paying to move the Richmond project along, but, you know, it's exciting to see more and more of these coming along. You know, it's starting to make it feel real, and that's a really cool thing.
Any other questions or comments? I guess I wanted to comment on this specific item because it is exciting to see these things starting to move more quickly. But I also understand that through the application process, there was some massaging we had to do with our relationship with Milas, and I feel like that they worked with us well to accommodate what we had to do to rethink our proposal and make sure we did due diligence to consider what was being recommended by the folks at the Navy. And I think this is a continued example of a relationship that has to be worked through and is a positive kind of give-take relationship. And I appreciate the fact that they're willing to do it and that we're willing to work with them to continue to improve that relationship.
It's also nice that we're not doing this when lumber was at its peak several months ago. And it was crazy.
Any other questions or comments? If not, a call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Brings us to 12.5, approval of contract with San Joaquin Fence for bid number 224000, chain link fence for the DoD OLDCC Richmond Elementary School replacement project.
In November 2022, the district was awarded a grant from the Department of Defense, Office of Local Community Cooperation, for the construction of a replacement Richmond Elementary School.
Have we heard that somewhere?
Well, you've heard this before.
Yeah, I know.
I think
And this is on that previous item, he wanted to repeat the information.
Well, it's a
So
little different.
He's not giving us a chance to say no.
This is the first of many contracts I think I'll be bringing to you. So this is our first contract for increment 1 on this project. So on October 18th, the district issued a notice inviting bids for site demo and earthwork, site utilities, and chain link fence for the project. The district received 3 bids for chain link fence. San Joaquin Fence submitted the lowest bid and is able to obtain a performance bond for the amount of their bid. The construction management firm Colombo Construction, Inc. recommends that the district award the contract to San Joaquin Fence. The bid amount for this bid package is $224,400. This will be funded by OLDC grant funds 80%, Fund 40 Capital Facilities 20%. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve a contract with San Joaquin Fence, the chain link fence for the DoD OLDC Richmond Elementary School project as presented.
Move the recommended action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members?
Yeah, just a
Rocco.
couple quick ones. Looking at the bidders, it looks like nobody from the IWV bid on this.
That's correct.
And so, we can look at this as a local bidder because they're at least in the county, it looks like. So that's a good thing. I think we always try to get our work done from folks close to home, but, sounds like these guys are the closest. So that's a good start.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Questions or comments from members of the public? Call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Brings us 12.6, approval of contract with Sierra Construction and Excavation Incorporated for bid number 2-14-000, site utilities for the DoD OLDCC Richmond Elementary School Replacement Project.
So the background is exactly the same on this one, so with your okay, I'll skip the background. Current consideration, the district received 3 bids for site utilities. Sierra Construction and Excavation submitted the lowest bid and is able to obtain a performance bond for the amount of their bid. The construction management firm Colombo Inc. recommends that the district award the contract to Sierra Construction and Excavation Inc. The bid amount for this package is $2,008,468. This will be funded by OLDC grant funds 80% and Fund 40 capital facilities funds 20%.
Move the recommended action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from the board members? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you much, Mr. Coit. Appreciate it. Brings us to item 13, Business Administration. 13.1, adoption of resolution number 2022-23 regarding the annual accounting of developer fees for the 2021-22 fiscal year. Capital Facility Fund number 25. Ms. McGuire, thank you.
Good evening, President Ferris, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Ostash, staff and community. I am the last person standing between you and the end of this board meeting. How fast would you like me to go? The adoption of Resolution 2022-23 regarding the annual accounting of developer fees for the 21-22 fiscal year, also known as Capital Facilities Fund, Fund 25. Background information, Government Code Sections 66001 and 66006 require public entities such as school districts collecting statutory school facility fees to make public and report to the governing boards an annual accounting regarding the status of the account in which those funds reside. The board's adoption of Resolution 2022-23 and the 2 accompanying exhibits complete the district's compliance and the government codes referred to above. The report is for the 21-22 school year. The balances in the Fund 25, the beginning balance as of July 1st, 2021, was $1,290,120.99. Interest earned was $12,938.82. City and county developer fees received was $795,724.72. The expenses associated are related to county administration fees of $1,389.94 and other expenses as described in the attachments that I didn't bring with me, so please don't ask me about those, are $391,243.21. There is something new in the last couple of years that I've been having to report on all of our fund balances, and that's fair market value. And I wanted to bring that to your attention because even though the county treasurer says we have X, fair market value either increases it or decreases it. And so the current considerations for fair market value, we adjusted in a negative for the 2 years. For a total of $61,900 something. I'm not going to math in public. with an ending fund balance of $1.6 million. The income and expenses information as well as summary graphs are included with the board item, and the continuing pace of both commercial residential development is a positive sign for both the district and the community. In 2021-22 and in 2020-21, developer fees collected by the City of Ridgecrest continue to outpace those collected by the County of Kern, and that would be for those people who live in the unincorporated areas or county areas versus those residing within the incorporated area of Ridgecrest. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the board adopt Resolution 2022-23 and the accompanying exhibits as presented.
Move recommended action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from members of the public? If not, we'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Moves to 13.2, adoption of Resolution 21-22-23 regarding impound of local tax revenue to anticipate pending claims and/or litigation. Impounds Fund 77. Ms. McGuire.
Thank you. This is an annual process. Some years we have to impound dollars, some years we get to release impounds. This year we have to impound $498 and some change. And this is a typical standard business practice that the county puts out for us. The county council has recently notified the district of insufficient amount of local tax revenues in the impound fund due to recent claims of pending appeals. Therefore, Fund 77 impounds shall be replenished from local tax revenues in April and May to cover the contingent tax liability. Increasing the balance in Fund 77 impounds will not create any financial impact for Sierra Sands Unified School District, although the impoundment of local tax revenues will not be deposited into the general fund. The state will offset the decrease in property taxes with a proportionate increase to the state aid. It is respectfully requested that the Sierra Sands Unified School Board authorize the superintendent to determine the amount of monies that should be impounded into the impounds fund. And it is further respectfully requested that the Sierra Sands Unified School Board authorize the superintendent to notify the county auditor's office in writing the amount to be impounded from those local tax revenues and the effective date for such release.
Move the recommended action.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Go ahead.
Yeah, just for my own edification, you know, looking at the spreadsheet of all the net contingent liabilities, is the ideal number 0
Yes.
on that?
Just like your taxes, the ideal is to net zero. And some years, like last year, we had $3,300 that we were able to release into our general fund. This year, we need to set aside an additional almost $500.
Right, okay. So that's a positive number means we need to plus up our impound, and a negative number means that we've impounded too much or something. So, okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Which is no net change to our own income because the state backfills or doesn't backfill based on.
Right.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Questions or comments from the public? And I think we have a motion and a second, right?
We do.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. It brings to item 13.3, approve of issuance of a district credit card to Donnie Morrison, Chief Technology Officer.
The district maintains several Alta One credit cards. The cards are used by the district for purchases that have an urgent requirement or are difficult to pay for by check, such as hotels, flights, rental cars, conference registration, etc. Alta One requires that the cards be issued to an individual so that the district practice to issue cards to members of cabinet. So it is a district practice to issue cards to members of cabinet. On July 16, 2020, the board approved the creation of a chief technology officer and the appointment of Donnie Morrison to this position, which was also added to the superintendent's cabinet at that time. It is appropriate to issue a district credit card to Donnie Morrison, consistent with the existing protocol for cabinet members.
Move the recommended action.
Second.
Thank you.
It's Been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Not, we'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Brings us to 13.4, approval of an agreement with USA Waste of California Incorporated, DBA Waste Management for solid waste and recycling services.
The Sierra Sands Unified School District has utilized waste management for solid waste and recycling services since 2012. The last agreement expired in 2016 and was never extended or renewed. Due to rate increases that have occurred since last agreement was approved, Waste Management informed the district that it was necessary to establish a new agreement. The district received a proposal from Waste Management for the current scope of services. There are no other service providers in the area, so it was not possible to competitively bid for those services. The agreement will be in effect from January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. The cost for service is $8,424.08 per month, and the general fund will be funding this. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the agreement with USA Waste of California Incorporated, doing business as Waste Management for solid waste and recycling services as presented.
Move the recommended action.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Rockwell.
Do you happen to know what the bill has been up until this point?
So on average, I actually was reading through these because Mrs. Smith isn't able to be with us tonight, and this was her item to present. But I was reading through these. She noted that there might be some questions about it. So I did a little research. Over the last 9 years, the district has paid $735,000 for waste management services. That's an average of $7,000 a month. And yes, there is an increase since our inception with them in 2013 of approximately 5% annually. So right now we're paying around $7,500 to $8,000 a month, depending on overfills or other charges that come into play. It's not like we're going to pack our own trash out. So I don't think we've got enough maintenance guys to take it to the dump for us, but I do understand, and I was seeing that increase, and I did do that math to figure out what that increase was so that we could make sure we were, reasonably priced.
Yeah, great, thank you.
I think everybody's trash has gone up.
Well, it has, and that sort of was one of my question, because
And I think proportionally a lot more.
Trash ain't cheap.
Another man's trash.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Brings us to 13.5, approval of the first interim report for fiscal year 2022-2023.
In accordance with the California Education Code 42130 through 42131, no later than 45 days after the close of each reporting period, the school district governing board shall approve the first interim financial report and certify in writing that the school district is able to meet its financial obligations for the remainder of the fiscal year and based on current projections for 2 subsequent fiscal years. Twice each year, school district governing boards are required to certify the district's ability to meet its financial obligations for the remainder of the current and 2 subsequent fiscal years. There are 3 different certifications of financial condition: positive, qualified, or negative certification. A positive certification indicates the district will be able to meet its financial obligations for the current and 2 subsequent fiscal years. Based on the reports presented, Sierra Sands Unified School District has a positive certification for the 22-23 first interim and both subsequent fiscal years. The following changes are reflected in the 22-23 first interim report. Unrestricted revenue. Local control funding formula, LCFF revenues, reflect an increase of $3.6 million due to an increase in the statutory COLA from 6.56% to 13.26%. This increase also includes a new transitional kindergarten add-on of $185,000. Other state revenues reflect an estimated increase of $686,000 of anticipated transportation reimbursement, as well as the transfer out of one-time budgets for the Arts, Music, Instructional Music Materials Block Grant and the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant. Those two particular were transferred from unrestricted to restricted, so they just shifted one side of the budget to the other. Other local revenues increases reflect the posting of library and donation carryover, as well as other carryover budgets. Expenditures, reduction in certificated and classified salaries and benefits are a result of offsetting using one-time restricted ESSER funding. Books, supplies, services, and other operating expenses reflect the transfer out of Arts, Music, Instructional Materials Block Grant and the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant. Restricted revenue. Federal revenue increases reflect the posting of prior year carryovers as well as adjustments to entitlements. Increases in other state revenues reflect the transfer in of the Arts, Music, Instructional Materials, and Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grants. On expenditures, certificated and classified salaries and benefit increases are a result of anticipated offset by using one-time restricted ESSER funding, and increases in other elements of expenses correspond to the increase in entitlements as discussed in revenues. Staff continue to monitor cash flow to ensure there is sufficient cash to meet all obligations. The district is projected to continue to deficit spend over the next several years, while one-time revenues have mitigated the immediate risk to the district. A careful review of current programs and their expenditures is necessary, including the obligations connected to the supplemental and grant funding as part of the LCFF. The key to protecting fiscal flexibility and solvency in an uncertain environment includes maintaining adequate reserves to allow for unanticipated circumstances. A 5% reserve for economic uncertainty has been sustained in the current fiscal year. In line with district practices, this report has been formulated in accordance with the guidelines provided by the California Department of Education, the Financial Crisis and Management Assistance Team, Kern County Superintendent of Schools, and School Services of California. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the Sierra Sands Unified School Board of Trustees approve the 22-23 first interim budget report as presented.
Move the recommended action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you, Ms. McGuire. That was a good pinch hit. Brings us to the consent calendar, item 14.
The entire consent calendar.
Second.
A motion for the entire consent calendar and a second. Any questions or comments from board members? Any questions or comments from members of the public? If not, we'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. That brings us to item 15, future agenda items. Any requests for future agenda items?
I have a suggestion, Mr. Ferris, if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
I wonder, with the board's adopted travel budget, with the inflationary pressures and increasing costs of travel and fuel and hotels and such, it might be a very appropriate time for the board to task me and my team with just analyzing that. And if we feel it's appropriate to come back to the board next month with a recommendation for an appropriately adjusted budget for the board.
I think that's valuable. I think maybe it ought to also include the fact that not just as far as the inflationary factors, but the board has taken on more responsibilities, so that may need to be factored in as well. Does the board feel like that is a worthy future agenda item for discussion?
I think it's an absolute necessity with the price I've seen on hotels, not only in professional, but in personal experiences as well. Like, it's just been, everything's just going up.
They got to make up for all those times they were closed.
Yes, they are, drastically.
They're working hard at that.
Any other comments, board members? Do you feel like this is, so basically, when we look at a future agenda item, we take consensus of the board, because anytime we add something to the agenda, it means it creates more work for administration, and typically when you add something, something else goes away. So we want to make sure that we have consensus of the board that this is something we want time spent on, that we feel like is valuable and important, and we have consensus, and it's not just one or two people driving the discussion. So we kind of need your sense. Are you supportive of this being added to?
So you're talking about when teachers go on travel? Is that what you're talking about?
No, this is actually, he is speaking specifically to there is a budget for board travel.
Oh.
So, and we discussed, that was in the, when we used those numbers when we looked at whether we wanted to send somebody to Washington, D.C.
Right.
So, but that has not been changed, that line item has not been changed for a number of years. So they're going to look at it and see if it, what they might recommend it ought to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It's inflation.
Yep.
Yes,
Just like the trash.
I noticed that when we went to our last meetings down in San Diego, how expensive it was to stay at Embassy Suites. And I was like, whoa. So,
and to your point, Mr. Ferris, you know, if we embed, for example, coast to coast, if we do that every year, which I think is a really important ramping up of advocacy, so that you know, Sierra Sands, California does better than what we have been doing with federal, then that's an additional cost that we have not considered in the past. So I just see the engagement of our board here before me, and it's good work, and it's an investment. So you've got those lines going together with the increased engagement and investment, and then of course the increased cost. So I just think it's a good time for us for staff to analyze it and make an appropriate recommendation to you, if you guys.
Kurt,
agree.
I think you're the only one that hasn't
weighed in. I think that'd be a great thing to look at. You know, one of the things I'd be curious about is, you know, how have we done against the budget? Because I don't think we've ever busted it that I can recall.
I don't think we've come close a couple times to fully expending it, but we have not ever.
Right. So from that perspective, it's, you know, that's two sides of the coin for me. One is we haven't needed anymore, but obviously there's been a ton of cost pressure, and you know, things are crazy now, and they're not going to come down. The other side is, you know, I think it says a lot about how the board manages that budget, and you know, we're very careful to make sure that we stay within the bucket that we have given ourselves.
And it is a budget. I mean,
it's not a law.
No. So,
but
the guideline.
Yeah, but I agree. It's worth.
So I agree as well. So I think we do want to see that. Any other recommendations for future agenda items? I have one. I believe that it is important. It is of critical importance that we establish who we are as a board. We have a transition going now, and our personality and the definition of our entity will be what we make it. And I believe we need to schedule a session for us to review the handbook, our norms and protocols, to make sure they are truly our norms and protocols. They were the agreed upon norms and protocols of the previous board. But as I said earlier this evening, I believe we are not just asking you to join us, we are becoming a new entity. And I think we need to have that meeting sooner rather than later, so that we can learn how we work well together for the benefit of our students in our district. And I see that as critical. So if we have the support of other members, I think that ought to be a specific future agenda item.
So I concur that that's a critical thing to do. I guess my only question would be, is that something we want to do immediately with only a few hours of experience in the seat, or should they have a little bit more experience before we come together and do something like that? I'm not sure.
Okay,
I'm not sure I feel strongly one way or the other at the moment.
I'll weigh in on that because I feel pretty strongly. So I believe our ability to operate is based on how we understand each other and how we know who we are and how we want to operate. The actual information that we gather through time will fit into that over time. I don't believe that that's the critical element. I think it's the critical element is how we do what we do, and I believe the longer we wait, the more we stumble. But we will be an element of time too. There has to be, the calendar's going to have to dictate something.
We do have a special board meeting that's already scheduled for Wednesday, January 11, and I know that from the district side, we'd be prepared to have the handbook there, and I feel confident we could utilize that time for this purpose. And then, you know, when we reach that time, if we think we need to do something subsequent to that, we could certainly talk about that. But why don't we go ahead, is that all right if we just add that agenda item on January 11 to our special board meeting at 6:15 p.m. at the district office?
My only question is, what kind of a time element do you feel the prior subject required?
I think we could appropriately fit it in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Then either come having already eaten or plan on eating there.
We could have a dinner. We could have a dinner there. We could have food.
To me, this is of major importance. I think how we lay our groundwork, how we set up our team will affect us on everything we do going forward. And putting the best foot forward in the beginning will allow us success, and stumbling along does not allow us success, so.
Are you stumbling? Are you referencing, you know, the?
I think I probably can stumble among the best of us, so. But that's me, so I want to hear from everybody else to see if that's kind of where everybody is.
Well, from a coaching standpoint, chemistry is important, so I'm all for learning to work together as a group and a team, and I'm all for it.
Yes.
Mary?
Mm-hmm.
Good?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm in. Yeah, and I agree. And like I said, I was just sort of kind of.
No, I get it. Your question was timing.
You know.
Which comes first?
Yeah, right. But if we don't do it right away, people might just get comfortable in the groove that we get into, and that may not be the right groove to be in.
I think if I want to use Coach's example down there, I don't think he says, let's go out and play some football first, and then we'll establish the team.
Fundamentals first.
So, okay, then that's, and I think, Dr. Ostash, if you feel comfortable with putting that in that same agenda, then we're good with that. And
Certainly.
If we decide we need more time for whichever, we can add that.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything, future agenda item? If not, we will go to item 16, which is adjournment. We thank you for coming this evening. And our next meeting is when? Oh, we need signatures, folks. Don't go away.
Where are you going? What are you doing?
That'd be me.